Hi guys, welcome back to this new series where we are talking about the Spring Boot advanced concept. So before we go to microservices and the other advanced concept of Spring Boot, we will talk about Lombok. That actually reduces a lot of boilerplate code. So this Project Lombok is a Java library that automatically generates the boiler code like the getter, setters, constructors, toString equals the hash code. So instead of writing 100 lines of code, you write 10 lines. Fine. So Lombok is a library that reduces boilerplate code in Java by automatically generating getter, setters, constructors, and other methods at the compile time. So let's go ahead and first see the code without Lombok. So let me first just go ahead and create a very simple Java project where we will not have much of the things. So let's have it like, let's call it as demo Lombok. Okay, so my project name, let me just finish that and let's expand this. And what I will do is I'll just create a simple class. Okay, let's call that class as maybe a student class or something. So once I create this student class, let's also create a main method in that. Fine. So now I have the student class. So generally what we do is we don't create a main method here, we create a service and then we create a main method there, right? So that's the concept that we usually use. But as for now, since it's a very small demonstration, so I'll be adding main method inside the student itself. So what we will do is we will just decide the properties that this particular class will have. ID of the student, let's call it as roll number or something. And similarly, I will have a name of the students defined and also the marks of the student defined. Okay, so let's say int marks of the student. And we know that as per Java conventions, we have to have all these properties as private, right? So that we do not expose these properties to the outside world without the getters and setters. Okay, so once we write the properties, we know that every time what we generally do is we create a default constructor, right? So that a child class can can have the object of it without explicitly calling the constructor with argument. Then we generate a constructor using field, right? So let's generate that, generate constructor using field. And similarly, after that, we usually generate the getters and setters. We generate a toString, right? So these are some of the very basic things that we usually generate, right? So that's what we do when we don't have Lombok, right? So now what I will do is I will try and use Lombok for the same and see how Lombok helps me reduce this sort of code that I have written. So first of all, for Lombok to run, what you have to do is you have to set up the Lombok for your ID, because during the compile time itself it will be generated. So your ID should be capable to generate those things, right? So Lombok, first thing is we have to download the Lombok, the project Lombok. You can go ahead and just say download Lombok. Okay, so here is this project Lombok that you have to download. So go ahead and download. So the latest version is 1.18.44. So that's something which I'll be downloading now. So once you download, it will be download as a lombok.jar file. Okay. So I will show you how do you set up Lombok in Eclipse, since I'm using Eclipse for this. So that is downloaded. Now once that is downloaded, I'll right click on my project. I'll go to the properties, and in the properties you can see here at the left hand side you have the Java build path, and from there you will see the libraries here. So click on the class path and click on add external jar. So once you click on add external jar, click on the Lombok jar that you have just now downloaded. So once we download this, simply apply and close. So in the reference libraries, you will see that a lombok.jar appears here. Fine. So you can simply right click on this lombok.jar and then click on run as the Java application. So once you run as Java application, it will search for Eclipse that is installed in your machine. If it does not search for the Eclipse automatically, you can click on specify location, and then you can give the location where you have installed your Eclipse. Since I have installed it in C drive, so there is no problem, it has automatically detected my Eclipse. There is a possibility that you might have more than one Eclipse, so at that time you have to specify which Eclipse you want to target. Okay, so once that is done, you can simply click on install uh, and update. So you can see that now the installation is done successfully. Okay, that means your IDE will now be capable of working with the Lombok. So once that is done, what you can simply do is you close your IDE and restart it. So I'll simply close the IDE, that is Eclipse, and once again I will restart it. So by the time it gets restarted, what we can do is we will discuss about the concept of the Lombok. So what Lombok does actually? Lombok actually generates the boiler code like getters and setters automatically for us. So since now the Eclipse is restarted, let us go ahead and see the demo Lombok. And once again, we have what we will do is we will once again right click on this package and create a new class. Now this class that I'm creating, let us call this class as student. Okay, and let's call this as student as my student or something, so that we can differentiate between the two classes that we have created. So we have a student class and then we have a my student class. So once again, this my student will also have the properties like this. So let us give the properties of the my student class. Let's save it. And after saving this, what I will simply do is I will go ahead and write a data annotation on top of this, which is a Lombok annotation, since I've added the Lombok into the reference library, so that should be fine. And after that, I will say it should have an all argument constructor and the no argument constructor. So once I do this, now you notice what is happening in my Eclipse. So you notice that I have not generated any code here. That means I have not generated any getters, any setters, any constructor and all. Now you see what I'm actually trying to do. I'm trying to create an object of my student. So let's call it as student is equal to new my student. And you notice that it is showing me that there is one uh, constructor that takes three arguments: roll number, name and marks. So let's give the roll number as 1. Let's give some name, let's say this as John or something, and lastly the marks, that is 80. So once that is done, what I will now do is I will simply print system.out.println the student. We know that if we just print student without having a toString method, we will not get the details of the student. So in this class I don't have a constructor, but the constructor is working. I don't have a toString. You will see that the toString will still work here. So I'll simply right click and click on run as the Java application. So you can see that the toString method is working fine. Similarly, what I will do is I'll just do a system.out.println. I'll say student.getName. So I'm trying to use a getter, although I don't have any getters and setters simply written here, right? So this is all the magic of the Lombok annotations that we have written here. With the data annotation, will give us all the required stuff, like a default constructor will be given. With the data annotation, we get the getters, setters, the toString, the hash code equals, all that will be generated just by writing this the data annotation. Since I wanted an all argument constructor, that is why I have explicitly written an all argument constructor. So once we know that in Java, if we have a constructor, then a default constructor will not be created. So because I wanted both the default and the all argument constructor, that's the reason I have written these two annotations, that is all argument constructor and a no argument constructor both. Okay, similarly what we can also check is we will check whether we have a setter method implemented or not. So we can say student dot set. So let's say we will set the roll number and we will change the roll number. Let's say we change it to 120, and after that once again we will try to print the roll number of the student and see whether it gives me the roll number or not. So let's just do a get roll number. Done. So let's save it and run this piece of code and see that. So you can see that 120 is been given to me. So this simple class without any boilerplate code like getters, setters, toStrings and all that. Okay. So the data annotation gives us the getter, setters, toString, equals and hash code. Then we have generated a all argument constructor and the no argument constructor, right? So to add the Lombok, since it was a simple Java project, what I have done is I have simply downloaded the jar file, added that here and executed this lombok.jar. If you want to use Lombok in your Spring Boot project, at that time you can simply download the dependency for the Lombok and add it into the uh, pom.xml. So because it was the first time I was installing, that means I was uh, adding the plugin of Lombok into my IDE. This is the way I used to enable, that is to allow Eclipse to have Lombok. Okay, so we can simply run it as a Java application. Fine. So the conclusion: Lombok is a Java library used to reduce boilerplate code by automatically generating getters, setters, constructors, toString, equals, and a hash code method using annotation. Okay, so it reduces the boilerplate code and improves the code readability and maintainability. So this is why we use Lombok. We don't always generate all that boilerplate code. Okay. So normally Java classes are very lengthy because we write a lot of getters, setters, constructors, toStrings manually. But Lombok reduces this code by generating everything automatically using annotations. So it makes the code cleaner, shorter, and easier to maintain. Fine. So, but one important thing that you have to remember about using Lombok in Spring Boot, that is especially with entities, we should generally avoid using this data annotation. Okay, so why should we avoid this? Should we use Lombok data in Spring Boot? So in Spring Boot for DTOs and all, we can make use of the data annotation. That's fine. But for entities, we should not use the data annotation because the data annotation generates getters, setters, toStrings, equals, and hash code. Okay, and the required arguments constructor. The problem is mainly with the toString, equals, and the hash code. This can create serious issues with Hibernate or JPA relationships. So that is why we avoid using the data annotation on top of the JPA entities. It is not recommended to use the data annotation on top of JPA entities. We can still use the other annotations, like we can use the annotations like getters, setters, all argument constructor, no argument constructor, and all that. Okay, so that way Lombok helps us reduce a lot of boilerplate code. So in my next session we will be starting with the concept of microservices. Hope you are enjoying in this series. If you like the series, please subscribe to my channel and also share it with your friends. Thank you. See you in the next session.